Okay, today we're going to look at sexual energy from a totally different perspective. We're diving into a framework that sees our most powerful signals not as something mystical, but as something happening right inside our own nervous system. So let's just get right to the heart of it with a question. The source material for this explainer wants us to really think about our own experience with desire, and more specifically, what happens on the other side of it. And the source is really upfront about who this is for. This isn't some kind of universal philosophy for everybody. It's a specific perspective for anyone who's ever felt that the cycle of desire, well, it sometimes ends up feeling more like depletion than vitality. So what does that feeling of depletion actually look like? Let's get a little more specific about the kind of experience this whole framework is designed to address. Do any of these sound familiar? The source really hones in on these specific patterns. Desire feeling more like a repetitive chore than a fulfilling journey, or that feeling of satisfaction that just seems to evaporate, leaving you with a sense of emptiness. If any of that resonates, then this perspective might offer a completely new way of looking at things. And I really want to stress this point. If your experience with desire is a source of vitality and energy for you, then the source text is super clear. This framework isn't for you. It's being presented as an alternative path, not some kind of universal rule everyone has to follow. All right, this is where things get really fascinating. This is the core mechanism. The source material suggests that the key to understanding all of this isn't found in our psychology, but in the actual physical wiring of our nervous system. So here's the big concept. Autonomic cross-coupling. Now, most of us think of our nervous system like a simple switch, right? You're either in fight or flight mode, that's your sympathetic arousal, or you're in rest and digest mode, which is your parasympathetic calm. Well, this concept pretty much flips that whole idea on its head. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Over on the left, you've got that conventional view, the simple on-off switch. But the model on the right suggests something totally different. Coexistence. Just imagine being deeply relaxed and calm, but at the same time being fully alert and aroused. It's not one or the other, it's both, happening at the exact same time. So if our system can be both on and off simultaneously, what does that actually unlock? Let's take a look at how this principle opens up a completely different kind of neural pathway for processing these really powerful signals. The source describes this incredible natural circuit. Instead of a strong signal like arousal just building up and getting trapped in one spot, it can actually travel up the dorsal axis, that's your spine, get processed centrally up in the brain, and then descend through the front of your body, completing a full loop. It's designed to be a continuous flow, not a dead end. And here's the absolute key. This isn't about forcing something to happen. It's not a technique you have to learn or practice. The source suggests this circular pathway is just our natural state, and it emerges all by itself once we get the obstructions out of the way. Things like physical tension or even just being too focused on a goal. Oh, and this is another really important distinction to make. The process itself might create physical sensations, maybe warmth or a feeling of pressure, but according to the source, chasing those feelings is totally counterproductive. They're just side effects of the energy moving. The real focus needs to be on just letting the pathway stay open and unobstructed. Okay, so we've got this idea of a different kind of wiring and a different kind of pathway. So how does that actually change the way we process sexual energy? Let's look at what the source calls a new operating system for the body. So here you can see the two models right next to each other. The one we're probably all familiar with is on the left. It's a model of consumption. The signal builds and builds in one specific place until it terminates in a release. But the alternative, on the right, is a model of circulation. Here, the signal isn't meant to end at all. It's meant to be processed throughout the entire body in a continuous, non-terminating loop. And that, right there, is the ultimate point of the source material. It reframes these ancient Taoist practices, sometimes called Fangzhongshu, not as a bunch of complicated techniques, but as a fundamental shift in our neural framework. It's about choosing circulation over consumption or suppression. So if this circulatory model is a natural potential we all have, what helps it happen? And maybe more importantly, what gets in its way? Let's look at the key inhibitors that the source material points out. And what's so fascinating is that the biggest inhibitors are all about trying too hard, forcing a result, chasing a feeling you had one time before, being stuck on a preconceived outcome, even controlling your breath too much. All of these goal-oriented actions create tension. And that tension is exactly what obstructs the very flow this framework is describing. It's really about allowing, not achieving. So when you boil it all down, the core takeaway is actually pretty simple. Our default, goal-oriented model for processing this kind of energy, it isn't the only one hardwired into our system. The source material is basically saying, hey, another possibility already exists right inside you. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. In a world that's so focused on goals and conclusions, this framework asks us to consider a pretty radical alternative. What if the real value of our body's strongest signals isn't found in their final destination, but in the path they travel through our entire system?